You know, let's talk about who knew, who didn't know I had a mental illness. They took 3.5 years. I sat in a cell all by myself for 3.5 years because they had to go through. I knew I had a mental illness, and we'll get to your, I'll answer your question. They had to go through the computers in the house. That was the big holdup. Reading what was on our computers. Because that would give some insight into our family, my life, our lives, right? That would explain everything. One of the first things my attorney told me on the 27th was Thursday. On Monday, on the 23rd of January, Beau wrote his friend, "My mom is mentally unstable." This is a 13-year-old who's writing his friends, who's noticing his mom. Now, I don't say, "Hey guys, I'm really mentally unstable today." No. They're noticing my behavior, apparently, and they're writing on Facebook or whatever that my mom is mentally unstable. That never came up in the trial because, I don't know, even though Beau's not able to say the words, he typed them on the computer. He knew. But nobody stood up and said she was very unstable. Her whole life, she was unstable.
So you wish someone would have helped you?
I wish I would have helped me. I don't know if I'm helping me now or hurting me now, but this is part of the problem. How you edit this is...
I'm going to run it in its entirety, hopefully. On TV it'll be edited, but we're going to run it on the web.
The problem is, when I sit on the stand, I can only answer questions. You can't speak freely. So there's where you get into trouble. You can't pick and choose your subjects. But just my husband and my doctor, the two main people, my shrink, Dr. Obregon, and my husband, were emailing each other every day. November and December. This happened in January. Do you know all those emails? I read those coming up to the trial. So I was like, at least they know I was having trouble. Those two people, the closest two people to me. My husband, who saw me every day, and my shrink, who knew supposedly, hopefully, what was going on. And both of them said, we knew nothing. Absolutely nothing. They sat on the stand and said, we knew nothing. And that's when I yelled out, "Dr. Obregon," in the middle of my trial. And I was reprimanded, of course, and my attorneys were reprimanded to shut me up because they're lying. They were both lying, and my attorneys didn't show. Look, you two were talking to each other for 2 months. November and December. My husband said, my wife is suicidal. My wife, I've never seen her this bad before. I've never seen her. And he's known me for 25 years. Never seen her this bad before. So, even though I didn't recognize, I'm getting back to after it happens, now obviously I recognize things that have happened. I'm not medicated, overly medicated. I'm not drinking, I'm not drugging, my body's basically clean except for psychotropics. So I can recognize things, but I also recognize how much I didn't know was going on. I came to this prison and a girl walked up to me and said, "Hi, I'm Lori. We met in rehab in November." This is 2 months prior. I said, "What?" in Clearwater. She goes, I go, mm-mm. She said, I did this with you? I said, mm-mm.
You didn't remember?
Didn't remember. I spent 3 weeks there, and we were there together the whole 3 weeks. And there's only 20 people there.
You didn't remember?
Now I know, 4 years later, how bad I was at that time.
And at that time...
So at that time, I can't explain anything to you because I don't even know what's going on at that time. So I want you, I am sorry that I can't tell you what was going on at that time.
Do you remember then Calyx's reaction at all?
Ooh, you're in left field now.
And I don't mean to be, but when you say you don't remember anything, and we were just when we were talking about Beau, does that mean you don't remember Calyx at all?
She went like this. And then this yellow thing around her came up and went through the ceiling. And then I picked her up and put her in bed and covered her up. And I sat her up and I hugged her, and she didn't hug me back. And I laid her down and I kissed her goodnight and I covered her up. And then I realized I forgot to cover up Beau, and it was January, so I went and got a blanket and I covered him up and kissed him goodnight. And I didn't see any blood at all. At all. But 3.5 years later, I saw blood in the pictures.
But that day, you don't remember?
No, no blood.
Why did you try to put a smile on Calyx's face?
One, how do you know?
Because I read it.
She was smiling, and this side wasn't smiling. And this side was smiling. And so I made this side smile.
Did she see the gun?
No. No.
What was she doing when you
I
went
don't
in?
know, because what I think happened isn't even what happened. I told them 50 times, and then at that point they let me read the discovery, and what I kept telling them isn't even what happened. So it doesn't matter.
It does matter, though.
It doesn't matter. They're trying to call me an effing liar. Effing liar. Yes, no, they're effing dead. No, they're effing dead. And then he quit. After 2.5 years. He quit the whole PD. He quit his job. He's not even a PD anymore.
Why did you finally agree to speak?
The reason I chose you over all the other people is because you're a mom, and you said in your letter, this is the only reason, you said that your biggest accomplishment in your life, first you listed all these accomplishments, everything you had done, all these huge interviews. Number one, first, only interview, blah, 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 over the years. And then you said, but my biggest accomplishment is being a mother. And that's exactly how I feel.
So what message would you like me to relay?
If you, I'm going to tell you when I told my husband, don't ever put me in a mental institution again.
So you want to
He did what I said. He didn't do what was right. And I think women, I don't know, see, this is very in depth.
But you think he should have put you in the mental institution?
Yeah, yes. Oh, yes. But he couldn't because his career was first.
So your message is, if
our
there's someone...
Our pride, I'm just going to say our, not his, our pride kept us from addressing mental health.
All right, we're back now with Serena Fazan, who spent many years corresponding with Julie Schenecker behind bars, which ultimately led to this exclusive interview. The issue of pride came up in that last segment, and that seems to speak so directly to the question of not why she killed her children, but why perhaps she never sought help for clear mental illness problems.
And Brendan, that, when she talks about that, that is the reason why I did this story. Not just as a journalist, but as a mom, because she appeared like so many other moms out there. She had everything. She had a great career. She was a military intelligence officer. How many people achieved that? She gave it up to be a stay-at-home mom and was living a life that so many of us do lead, and yet she held on to this secret that ruined so many lives.
They lived in New Tampa, sort of an upper middle class neighborhood. Did she have a social life? Did she interact with her neighbors? Did they entertain?
Yes, when she was well. That's what she said. When she was well, and as long as she could put on her lipstick and put on her clothes and do her hair, they had friends, but there were bouts where she wasn't well.
Right.
And they would just say she was sick, as you heard. And so they hid that. They hid that from so many people, is what she claims.
Right. How much of this might have had to do with her military upbringing, which, sort of has an ethic of toughing it out and dealing with your own problems rather than seeking help or appearing weak?
I didn't even think about that, quite frankly, until she started to talk about it. And it was fascinating to me because she said, there were many examples that she gave, that it was okay for her to be unstable. She would get a pat on the back, that it was fine. And also goes to the point that you said that she needed to do this by herself, and the one person that she could rely on was her husband of more than 20 years.
Yeah, very good. Okay, let's go back to Serena Fazan's exclusive interview with Julie Schenecker.